All right, it's episode 27 of the Wait for It Seattle podcast. I like to call this the Reek Woolen episode.
Nice. Nice because the Seahawks are also nice right now.
They are
Four
nice.
games in a row, nice.
Yeah.
Four wins in
Uh,
a row, nice.
it's Kevin and Brian back again. My sister, who I love very much, said to me on Sunday, "Am I gonna have my morning routine on Monday screwed up?" And and I said, "You are. Yes,
Yeah,
you'll have to move it to a Tuesday routine." So shout out to Caitlin as she's listening on Tuesday
yeah.
morning.
Oh, shout out to Caroline too, who messaged me and said the Wait for It Seattle podcast made it to my Spotify Wrapped as my number one
Yeah,
podcast.
both sisters on the top five.
Yeah.
Caroline number one, though. We didn't make it number one on my sister. That's okay. All right, we got three
Uh,
points today, Kev. 3 points for the Reek Woolen episode.
yeah.
I sure hope Reek Woolen's 27. I'm pretty sure he is.
It doesn't matter.
There's no Sonics that were 27. I couldn't tell you a Mariner who's 27. So
It's a weird number.
I don't think there's a Kraken player 27, but let's talk about as many sports as we can. Let's start with
Yeah.
those Seahawks who you said were nice.
Yeah.
8-5, first place.
Dude, it's pretty nice.
Remember when they were 4-5?
Yeah.
And
We were
not
talking about if McDonald's is going to lose the rest of his games.
we did say what was the number for him to get fired, remember? Like
Yeah.
lose the rest?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then we said, well, they have to go beat the Niners and the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And then after that, we said, well, they got to sweep the Cardinals. And they're just doing all the things we say they got to do. And they
Yeah.
still have to keep winning because the Rams are only one game back, and the Rams beat the Hawks the first game.
Yep.
They play the last game of the regular season. I think it's going to come down to that no matter what happens.
Yeah. So how many games are there left? Three?
Well, there's four total, including the
Yeah.
Rams. So the Seahawks play the Packers and Vikings at home,
Yep.
and then they go on the road to the Bears. We said this last week. They need to split with the Packers and Vikings at home. Obviously, winning both would be amazing, but
Yeah.
split, go beat the Bears. You're at 10-6 going into the Rams game. I'm going to guess the Rams are going to be 9-7 or 10-6 going into that game as well.
Yeah.
So either way, it doesn't matter if they're a game behind and they win, they get the
Yeah.
tiebreaker. So you're going to have to beat the Rams in the last week.
Yeah. So basically, it boils down to this. I think Danny O'Neill in his newsletter put it this way. They have a higher chance, or maybe this was Seaside Joe, one of the two. They have a higher chance of making the playoffs if they only win two, if they win three games, but one of those games is against the Rams. Or no,
Yep.
no, wait. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And or if they won three games and lost against the
There's
Rams.
a scenario where they
Yeah.
win the next three games. They're
And they,
11. I mean,
yeah, and then they
they
lose
were
to the
11 and
Rams.
5 and they lose to the Rams and they finish 11-6. They might end up with a wild card, to be honest,
Yeah.
because the Commanders are 8-5 and the Commanders have a rookie quarterback and, they have some winnable games, but
Yeah.
they may not get to 11 wins. So let's just hope they keep rolling. Here's the things that have been working. The rush defense, the last three games, Kev, given up 86 yards per game, fifth best in the NFL. This was a absolute sieve before that.
Yeah.
Just
That was a great metaphor.
thank you. Yeah, just people running through it. And then
Yeah.
pass defense is not bad. 11th best in the NFL over the last three games. Opponents' points per game, 15 for the last three games,
Yeah. You know
which is
what's
second best in the NFL.
yeah,
So
they
the
just
defense has arrived under Mike
yeah.
McDonald.
And they're just making turnovers, man. It's
Yeah.
awesome. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's a throwback to Pete Carroll in his prime. Like it's all about the ball. You create extra possessions, it gives Geno Smith more of a chance to make something happen. Like it creates momentum. There's all these great things about turnovers in football games and watching the games. That's the difference to me.
Yeah, they have
Is
been
that
good
they're
in turnovers.
creating
I feel like they're
turnovers.
not what I like. I don't like the Pete Carroll teams that were like, we got to get the ball, but they sucked at everything else. So
Yeah,
it's like cool. But
yeah,
this defense has now become like really solid. And I got a buddy Lewis, one of my best friends, who texted me about the Seahawks, and he's like, how come they keep hitting on these in season trades for defensive players? And it is kind of wild, right? So they traded for Leonard Williams last year. Amazing trade,
yeah,
obviously, right? Ernest Jones, amazing trade, right? Like he's totally solidified the linebacker core, and he's young. He is an unrestricted free agent, I
Yeah.
believe, after the year. But anyway, they've kind of figured it out. Like they've got a good thing going. They'll be tested with Jordan Love and the Packers. I do like that it's at home, although to your point on other podcasts, there's going to be so many Packers fans there.
Yeah.
It's going to be wild. Can I shout myself out?
Go ahead.
Do you know what I said at the 23-minute mark of last week's podcast about the running back situation in
That
Seattle?
you need to let Zach Charbonnet run into people for 3 or 4 yards.
I said replace Kenneth Walker with Zach Charbonnet was my hot take.
Oh,
Now,
he didn't get replaced. He
Walker
just
was
got
hurt,
injured.
but
Yeah.
Charbonnet went 22 carries for 134 yards, 7 catches for 59.
Yeah.
Charbonnet was awesome.
Trust me, I know. He's on one of my fantasy teams. It was
Okay,
great.
nice work. Yeah. It was a big difference. They ran the ball for the first time in weeks.
Do you
And
start him if Walker comes back healthy this week?
you go 50-50 workload at minimum. Like you got to
Yeah.
give Charbonnet. I mean, if it, yeah, you start
Catches.
Charbonnet and you bring Walker in as change of pace, see what he can do. You gotta go with it. I mean, this
Yeah.
is winning time,
So
right?
you know who got the game ball? Charbonnet got game ball, but you know who else got game ball?
Who else?
Scott Huff, the offensive line coach.
No. Way to bring it back
Um,
to the Huskies, Kev. Good
got
job.
had to, man. I think they're blocking better too. I think they're getting
They
better
are,
at it.
well, they are. You know what, Tomlin? I looked up the Pro Football Focus grades.
Yeah.
Laken Tomlinson, who I've slammed on many a post this year
Yeah.
at left guard, had a really nice game.
Yeah. No sacks allowed.
Yeah.
They didn't allow a sack. What?
One more one more shout out. That is actually I need to pause for a second. That's ridiculous. I don't even believe you. Um, I don't even think that's true.
Let's,
Um,
dude.
I mean, I believe you. I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's so ridiculous that I don't believe it to be true. Um, JSN, 5 catches, 82 yards, a absolutely ridiculous catch off the turf
Yeah.
on a huge play. I mean,
He's undisputed the number
so
one
good.
receiver on this
Yeah,
team, right? Yeah. He's
which is
past
crazy.
BK. He's
Well,
Lockett's,
Tyler Lockett doesn't actually exist
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
He had one
He
target.
dropped that ball. It was
He had
right
one
there for him.
target, so
Yeah.
uh it's kind of
Okay.
wild. Yeah. But big game, Seahawks Packers. Here's the thing that's cool about it. I'm so excited for Seahawks games now.
Yeah. Me too.
That's fun. That's fun. And this game we said this. So I operate often in fear as a Seattle sports fan, right? So I'm like,
That's deep. That's
well, it's
deep.
also how I would coach sometimes. I'd be like,
Yeah.
you always think of the worst case scenario, like if we can just beat them, then this doesn't happen, right? Now I'm kind of like, go get it. The Packers. They're only one game ahead.
Yeah, you're
And
in.
you beat
Yeah.
them and you have the tiebreaker now.
Yeah, you are in. So, when you said you operate out of fear, like my profession, right, is all about like avoiding risks
Yeah.
as a lawyer. But then I'm also a litigator, so you can get uber aggressive, right? Like
Mhm.
the best offense is, the best defense is a good offense, right? Just go
Yeah.
after it, like just like relentless, and then make the other people kind of the other side kind of fold to you. So I think there's value to that.
Um, all right, as we transition away to football, I just wanted to make sure I have this correct. You did not make the fantasy football playoffs in our league?
I did not.
Okay, just checking. Thanks. Good news, Kev. I won tonight, so on to the semifinals. Yeah.
God.
All right. Point number two. How
The
about the
Kraken
Kraken?
6 point road trip. I'm stealing your show notes that you wrote.
Kev,
Although
it's
I
all
didn't.
good, man.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
rolling, baby.
Yeah.
I the Kraken are so confusing.
They're so up and
They're like
down, man.
perfectly 500. I think they're 14-14 and one
Yeah.
shootout loss. And they will last week they just sucked against teams that they should be beating or they could be beating, right? And
Yeah.
they go on the road on this really hard road trip against two of the best power play teams in the league, teams with great records playing on the East Coast, and they go 3-1. They beat the Islanders and the Hurricanes to lead it off. They lose to the Devils, but they led twice in the game. It was a great game. The New Jersey Devils are really good. Then they go to Madison Square Garden, 10 a.m. Pacific time on Sunday. It was awesome.
I was so confused when I got that alert on my phone.
Yeah. Well, I love like the early hockey, and I was, of course, I was at like fifth grade AU basketball.
Yeah,
But I look at my phone and I'm like, God bless it. They're down 3-1. I'm like, it's an
yeah,
okay road trip. They're 2-2. There were 6 minutes to go in the second period. Then I get to my parents' house and I look at my phone again and they're up 4-3 at the end of the second. And I was like, what the hell happened?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then I watched the whole third period. It was awesome. The Rangers are good. They were bringing it. It was 7-5 in the Garden. Like, what a cool win. Um, the young guys are starting to do some stuff, like Matty Beniers and Shane Wright in particular. Shane Wright gets he's like the fourth center, right? So we talked about this before, fourth line.
Mm,
He gets the least amount of playing time of the centers, right? They play Yanni Gord a lot more. Beniers plays a lot more. Chandler Stevenson plays a lot more. All vet. Well, Beniers is more established. The other two are veterans. Shane Wright plays like 12 minutes a game, and he scored 2 goals on the road trip. He had an awesome goal. He's getting positive minutes. He's creating chances. I looked up some. It's really hard because I don't totally understand hockey well enough. But I started looking up advanced stats, and I'm like, I don't even know which ones to look up. But Shane Wright has the sixth best shooting percentage among qualified players in the NHL.
that's pretty
So like
impressive.
that tells me from a novice hockey person, okay, this talent that they saw to draft him in a top three pick and we were excited about, he's 20 years old, I think. Like maybe he's starting to develop it and it's starting to go. So
Yeah,
I think for a team like the Kraken who don't have a superstar, who are relying on dudes to just score, and on the road trip they had 9 different scores, multiple guys with multiple goals, right? They need these young guys to pop. So to see Beniers and Wright do it is super exciting. Um, and then I'm just gonna preach for my guy Brandon Tanev, who is just having an awesome year and yeah, good Kev the eyes, nice. We got to put that on the show picture or something. You could do Spotify video. Maybe that'll be our
yeah,
still shot.
yeah. They can see my
Tanev's
beautiful
just
Santa Clara hat right now.
that's so beautiful. Tanev's just balling out. But I'm gonna leave you with one Kraken stat because I think it's important. Okay.
Yeah,
This is cool. And I think this is where you'd get into hockey if you had the chance to watch more. Good to me, like a fun hockey team is a team that, like all sports, just sacrifices themselves for the good of the team. In hockey, I'm like falling in love with hockey. Um, it's so much more exciting. I was thinking about this, so much more exciting than soccer to me.
it's faster. Is
There's
that why?
faster, there's better
Yeah,
action. Soccer, currently, my wife's gonna kill me, but soccer, like there's so much dramatics of like faking injuries or whatever, right?
yeah,
You never do that in hockey. The opposite of that is you literally throw your body in front of the puck. Like it's the coolest thing. They
yeah.
have a stat called block shots. And especially on power plays or at the end of the game when somebody pulls a goalie and you're down a man.
You have to give your body up to
And
block the
Brandon
puck.
Tanev is the most badass. His ankles are just getting shattered by pucks because he's diving in front of it.
Yeah,
And here's what the Kraken have done on the road trip in their games. They had 20 blocks in one game, 24 in another, 19 in another, 25 in another. To give you a perspective, they're seventh in the NHL at 17 blocks per game. But in all 4 games, they were above that number. So it tells me that something, hopefully this builds in their homestand. Something is where they're like fighting for each other and they're doing it. And I think that's what people like about the NFL and football is when guys sacrifice. There's something in us human nature wise where we like that. I don't
it's
know.
not about $675 million, which we'll get into
All right.
with
It's
our
not.
with our
It's
with
not.
our guests
It's
today.
not. It's not about that. It's about putting your body on the line. And Brandon
Yeah,
Tanev's the best at it. So shout
yeah,
out Brandon Tanev. All right. Number 3, Kev, turn it over to you.
yeah,
Huskies are going bowling.
yeah. They're going to the Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas, a classic Pac-10, Pac-12 bowl, and they're playing Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Louisville.
Louisville, Louisville,
Louisville.
Louisville. Um, if you don't have plans on New Year's Eve, they're playing at 11 a.m. on CBS, which is kind of
It's
nice. A little
so
earlier.
perfect. It's actually
Yeah.
so perfect.
Yeah, it's before like if you go and do things on New Year's Eve, it's well before that. It's like it's a good time.
Do people
Um,
really go out on New Year's Eve anymore, or is it just that I am 45 years old and
I
I
mean,
will
I'm
definitely not be
definitely
going
yeah,
out?
I'm long past that as well. Um,
All I want is for there to be sports on all the way till midnight.
yeah.
That would be awesome.
Um, Louisville uh
Louisville.
is 8-4. They're out of the ACC. Um, they have four losses. Here are the
Yeah,
losses.
you said they're 8-4.
7 point loss to Notre Dame, who's in the playoff.
Mm,
7 point loss to SMU, who's in the playoff.
mm,
7 point loss to Miami, who just missed the playoff.
hmm
And then a 3 point loss to Stanford, their
mm.
storied ACC conference rival, Stanford. So this is a long way of me saying, like, I don't know if the Huskies have a shot in this game. I think just on paper, Louisville's probably better. But even like, I don't even know how much these bowl games have been de-emphasized so
Yeah.
much. We don't know who's gonna play.
Yeah.
Seniors might not even play. There might be guys that have decided to leave the team, although
Portal's open right now.
yeah, the portal's open. Jedfish said even if you're in the portal, you're part of the team. If you want to play and you've committed to another program, like we'll give you that opportunity. Although if I'm a
That's
coach that's
wild.
receiving the transfer, I'm like, I don't want you to go and
No.
injure yourself in the Tony the Tiger Sun
Yeah.
Bowl.
The good news for Husky fans
Yeah,
is, right, Damon Williams is going to play.
yeah, that's the interesting thing, right? Like
Jonah Coleman's going to play. Adam
Denzel
Muhammad's going to
Boston,
play, I'm
Denzel
assuming.
Boston's gonna
Denzel
play.
Boston's going to play. So, like, the Huskies will have their dudes that you want to watch. So that'll
Yeah.
be fun. I totally agree with you. 11 a.m. on New Year's Eve. I'm in. Great
Yeah,
timing. Brock
yeah,
Heward made this point on 710 this morning that is obvious, but maybe not talked about enough. The fact that they're playing a New Year's Eve game gives them more practices,
yeah.
which is important for a young team. They just
I,
get a bunch of
yeah,
bonus practices. Yeah.
that's a lot of practices and
Versus if you were playing
yeah,
like December 20th, right? You
yeah.
get an additional 10 days of practice and more time with the team, which is what Jed Fish needs to build this thing.
Yeah, and I kind of give credit to Fish. He said, we're gonna treat it like a championship game. Like this is our championship. Like it's kind of corny, but
Yeah. No, you have to.
you
Totally.
have
Yeah.
to. I mean, you're a coach trying to motivate your team and trying to build a program.
Yeah.
This is the kind of mindset you have to have. So
Yeah.
excited
And
about
give
that.
him credit. Sorry, I cut you
Yeah.
off. I
No, no, no,
apologize.
no. Go ahead.
But I was just going to say, give him credit. We get pissed off because they're devaluing the Bulls and nobody's playing and stuff.
Yeah.
Like for a coach to treat it like a championship game is great. That's what we want out of bowl games. Like
Yeah.
to the point where we just talked about. Like we don't want to go watch scrubs play. Like if I'm going to watch the Huskies, I want Louisville's best players to play. I
Yeah.
want it to
And
be a real game.
honestly, for fans too, and this is completely removed from the conversation of like what's important to the team, but for fans, bowl games stand out. Like even I will never forget the Alamo Bowl. Like that was a
Oh
year
yeah,
when the Huskies weren't contenders, but it was Robert Griffin the third, right? Like there are bowl games that have no like important meaning, but the fans
right.
will remember them, which, you know, gives them actual meaning. So
Do you know that in the 1989 Freedom Bowl, which was a great name for a bowl, that Emmett Smith was playing for the Florida Gators, and he was big time.
yeah.
And the Huskies won that game 34-7. And I'm trying to find his numbers, but Emmett Smith did not have a good day. And yeah, lowest rushing total in a game since he was a freshman. He had 17 yards on 7 carries.
You want to know even a better fun fact about a random bowl game?
Why does it have to be better? That was a good one.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Okay.
The
I
19,
was
yeah,
helping your point, but you can help
yeah,
your point as well that
yeah.
bowl games are things, and I was like 10, and I totally remember that. Go ahead.
1997, the Aloha Bowl.
Okay.
The Huskies beat Michigan State 51 to 23.
Mm,
The coach for the Huskies was Jim Lambright. Do you know who
hmm
the coach for the Michigan State Spartans was?
No.
Nick Saban.
No way.
Yes.
That's a good one, Kev.
Yeah,
You're right. That was better. You were right. You're right.
yeah.
One of the few times. Yeah, that's amazing. That's good.
They
Yeah, you're
did it
right though. The bowl games,
so random.
there are some bowls, memorable bowls that are good. I feel like they've played in the Sun Bowl a ton of times. Are you going to go
Yeah.
to El Paso? Are you going?
No way. This is not
Why
the
not?
national championship. I went to Texas
Oh,
last year
you
for the
did.
national
Yeah, that's right.
championship. I've used up all my my husband and now dad free Monopoly
Yeah,
cash. So I
yeah,
gotta save up for the next
that's
big
fair.
game.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations to Kellen DeBoer.
Yeah.
Oh wait, they didn't make the playoff.
Speaking of Alabama, yeah.
Yeah,
Nine to
that's too
three.
bad. Well, the only thing that makes a Seattle sports fan feel worse than Kellen DeBoer leaving the Huskies and the Husky men's basketball team absolutely crapping themselves to start the Pac-12 season is the Seattle Mariners. So we're gonna welcome a guest to talk about the Seattle Mariners. Some of you will, say, "Ah, I can't do it," but you know what? It's really good. It's a really good interview. Don't you think, Kev?
Yeah, yeah. All right. We'll bring you
Kev
Patrick.
said, yeah, it's really good. It's really good. No, it is. We're gonna talk about the winter meetings, what the Mariners should do, shouldn't do, who they should trade, who may be on the way out, who's on the way in. You got to check it out. Here's our guest.
All right, we're here with our first guest. Um, why did I say first guest? Our
First guest like
guest.
ever? Like,
I was gonna
We've
say
had
that
we've
that's
had
can't be right.
yeah,
yeah,
we've
we've
had
had
some
plenty
guests,
of
Kev.
guests. Yeah. But we haven't had uh Twitter famous.
Mm.
I still say Twitter. We haven't had a Twitter famous. I guess Sam
X
Hyatt
famous
might
doesn't
have
sound
been.
right, so that's fine.
Yeah, I think Sam Hyatt might be Twitter famous, but like Patrick Leary, also known as Mariner Muse.
Hmm.
Let me give you some backstory on Patrick before I get into a little more of his background and how we know Patrick. But when the Mariners were on their run in 2022, I followed a great Twitter account called Mariner Muse. And I just assumed, like, oh, this is just someone that's really clever and funny and well informed. And eventually, someone else, one of my friends goes, yeah, aren't those like a bunch of prep guys? And I was like, what? I have no idea. And then I texted Patrick, who's a longtime friend and wrote for the original Seatown Sports. And I said, are you running this account? He goes, yeah, me and a couple buddies are. So that was a great reintroduction into Patrick. And
Wait, Kevin, are you
yeah,
now taking back that it was funny and clever and smart, or once you knew it was
no.
Patrick? Oh, okay.
I
It
still
was
think it's
still okay.
funny,
Okay, just
clever,
Took
and
away the
indulgent.
smart.
mystique.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me and
yeah.
Patrick was part of the original Seatown Sports. So if you go on like the Wayback Machine and you click and you type in seatownsports.net, you can find articles that Patrick wrote 10 plus years ago. Um, and here we are, 10 years later, and we're still talking about
10 is generous, man.
yeah,
I'm gonna be
we're
honest with you.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a little longer than
yeah, a
that,
It's
Kev.
little
almost
longer.
15 at this point.
15, yeah, and we're
Yeah.
still talking about how the Mariners are bad. Um, or
Bad's a
bad,
relative term,
maybe
but
bad
yeah,
at
Different
certain
sort of
things,
bad.
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's same. Who was the second baseman in 2008? Let's start there.
Wow. That's a great question.
It's not Jose Lopez, right? That's
That's who I
No,
thought.
that's I think exactly who it is because that would
Yeah,
have been right
yeah.
around the time
and
when he was
Jose
an
Lopez
all-star.
was an all-star, so maybe the
Yeah.
He
first
was
didn't
1 year
start.
All-Star.
Yeah.
Him and Dan
Yeah.
Vogelbach and
Scored the winning run in the All-Star game, I believe.
that's
Either that
right.
or
Good call, Patrick.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So that was a very long introduction. Elzer, you're wearing your Mariners hoodie today.
I am, yeah.
And we decided to bring Patrick on because one, he's been writing at Seatown Sports. Again, he's back.
Yep.
And two,
So back.
we think that he can provide some insight on the winter meetings, which
Yep.
just began, like
With a
their
splash,
beginning.
with a boom.
Yeah. A
The winter meetings
700
started with a boom. Yeah.
$765 million boom. Did I
Yeah,
get
that
the
was a good
numbers right?
sentence, Kev.
Yeah.
A little
He's flip.
dyslexic, but you got there.
Yeah, Juan
Uh,
Soto to the Mets. That was a big one. It was kind of the first domino people thought
yeah.
would fall, which I don't know that everybody thought that originally, but the week leading up to the meetings, all the reporting was Soto was going to sign right before the meetings or at the start of the meetings, and it was Red Sox, Yankees, although Red Sox probably were an outside shot, and Mets. Um,
Do you think Cal
right?
Raleigh is regretting his choice to let Boris go? That's a lot of
I
money.
do not. I think Scott Boras is dedicated to the dog and pony show these days,
Mm,
and would not be the best possible representative for someone like Cal, who's trying to um, maybe not be paraded around like a high prized
yeah,
Yeah.
item, and probably just wants to kind of do something that serves his purposes in a way that kind of fits the kind of player he is. Now, obviously, like the Soto signing is crazy,
yeah,
and I don't know, that's a Boris special. Like that's the kind of thing that he's been doing his whole career now. I think he's probably a bit on the way out, but and this might have been his last real
mm,
salvo. But I mean, it's an all time record and truly a perfectly managed negotiation because he essentially got to pit the Yankees against the Mets, and that's
yeah.
about as lucrative as it can get, and an incredible job by Cohen to get that deal done, even if it's an insane contract that's going to be impossible to live up to. But yeah, just a home run for the Mets for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So the other, aside from Juan Soto, the other sort of prize of free agency, even though it's not really free agency, is who I like to call Rob Sasaki, but his name is not Rob. I just mispronounced or I said his name wrong last time on a podcast. So Roki Sasaki, who
Yeah,
Patrick, reading today, it looks like with the international signing period, most people think he won't sign until after January 15th. Does that
correct.
sound right? Okay.
Yeah, there's like a week window um in between when there's like a week window where he has to sign to be in the window. So it's after the 15th and before the 23rd he can sign essentially is
This,
what the
this was
protocol.
similar. This has been a long time, right? Like I'm kind of having flashbacks of Ichiro. It was the same
Yeah.
type of
So
window.
everyone's kind of known about Sasaki for a really long time.
Yeah.
He's a total unicorn of a pitcher in Japan, and he is technically going earlier than people were anticipating. It's
Right.
similar to what Shohei Ohtani did. You usually have to wait. Yoshinobu Yamamoto was the opposite case last year, where he waited his entire time and then was able to be treated like an open market free agent and got an insane deal, like $300 million.
Right.
Ohtani, when he came out, obviously he was available for whatever international bonus pool money because he came early, similar to Roki Sasaki this time around. So it'll be one of those deals where money probably doesn't matter because it'll be a matter of him making something like 5-6 million versus 3-4
Mm.
million. And at that point, um, you just probably want to choose the team you want to go to, and that sets you up the best to cash in eventually.
So
Uh,
this is where the reporting today that was interesting is that the Mariners are saying they're in. Like,
yeah,
and Dipoto and Hollander to me are notoriously tight-lipped about what they want to do. And so my question is it real or is this, to use
Just
your term earlier,
posturing.
posturing, right? Is this
Yeah.
just to
yeah.
show something to the fan base? And before you answer, just when you say that it's because of the international signing, it's not really about, a Yamamoto deal, it kind of makes me feel like maybe they really are gonna try and be in because it's reasonable.
I believe that they will try to be in.
Yeah.
The problem I think is a lot of people think it's kind of already decided
Mm.
in one way or another. It sounds like that. I mean, the Dodgers have this
Yeah.
incredible pipeline right now to Japan because of Otani and Yamamoto, and it's been speculated even before it was anywhere near a certainty that he was going to get posted earlier this year. The speculation has been that he's essentially already a Dodger. Now
Yeah.
you can't, I don't think you can really say that with any sort of certainty as as sort of just a casual fan, right? Like I don't think you can really interpret that report and say that you then know definitively that he's a Dodger. But most indications are that he's either a Dodger or a Padre. The Mariners' efforts, I believe, are sincere, but also kind of serve a purpose at the same time, even if they don't get the job done. Obviously, it'd be an amazing player to add to their overall team picture, but I think the effort sort of serves to show that they're trying, and it's extremely possible that they have no chance.
Hmm.
But I think they're served to try anyway. Especially the two of them are served to show that they're trying anyway. The trade market also might not be where they want it to be right now,
Hmm.
and that could be part of why they're kind of devoting a lot of effort to Roki Sasaki, because it's kind of what they can spend their time on productively right now.
Hmm.
But ultimately, it just doesn't seem like they have anything more than like a puncher's chance and their sort of rationale of look at all the pitching we've developed, which is
Right.
reasonable. But I just don't in the reporting around the Mariners' efforts, I don't see anything specific to Sasaki, other than they said that they'd be willing to do a 6-man rotation for him
Yeah.
because NPB pitchers pitch on a 6-man
Right.
rotation. So that is potentially interesting, but I just don't. There isn't anything specifically linking them to Sasaki other than just their general pitching bona
Yep.
fide, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas you see all these other teams, the Dodgers are like a strong contender. The Padres are a strong contender because of the connection that like Yu Darvish
Yeah.
has to Sasaki, and
Yeah.
that Yamamoto and Otani have to Japan. And it just doesn't seem like there are those carrying specifics for the Mariners. And
Yep.
so I don't think it's anything more than kind of a shot in the dark for them ultimately.
Yeah.
And that timeline is interesting. And this will relate to the next part because, there's more Castillo smoke now in
Yeah,
terms of a trade. I,
for
I
sure.
I would really be shocked if Kirby, Wu, Miller, or Gilbert get traded, right? I mean, it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense as a team that's financially constrained, whether that's their own making, and they shouldn't be. We know that they have said they are, right? So you keep your pitchers under control who are all awesome. Like they were incredible last year.
I
But would
I
you
really
trade
don't
Castillo?
see, I don't see, like you said, I don't see the young four at all getting traded. Um, as far as Castillo goes, I think it's a difficult situation to parse out and decide. I think there are merits to trading him. I think that there are obvious concerns about trading him. I think the biggest one is he's kind of a negative neutral asset type contract, depending on kind of where you're at with that kind of stuff, and different teams could sort of value it different ways. But I think that if you look at it like that, and that's kind of saying that you might only get kind of established major leaguers that have similar contract
Hmm.
or question marks. At what point is it just worth it to just have a 2.5 to 3.5 WAR
Yeah.
starting pitcher in your rotation, um, versus the kind of upgrades you could add for periphery pieces and small prospects? That's where I think the Castillo trade is tricky, and
Yeah.
especially tricky because he has a no trade clause
Hmm.
through the end of 2025. So maybe they try to trade him in early 2026 before the start of the 2026 season. That makes more sense. But I just think there's a certain level of return that doesn't justify just giving up on a guy who you can probably just plug in. And maybe he's a little shaky at times, but he's still like a 2.5, 3.5 WAR
Yeah.
pitcher. And I just don't know at what point the return that you're going to get justifies giving up a player like that when you're trying.
Yeah.
And so that whole rotation can be, 3 to 5 WAR pitchers. And if you're going to take one piece out, you kind of have to bring in another piece that justifies taking the piece out. And I just don't think the kind of return they'll get for Castillo is on that level.
Castillo is like, I still think that he could be an ace, the number one pitcher on, you know,
Yeah.
a handful of Major League Baseball teams. Maybe not as much as when he first came on with the Mariners, but still, there was nothing last year watching and looking at his stats where I was like, this guy's completely fallen off. Like the reason why the trade, and if you're listening to this and you haven't been tuned into Mariners or haven't thought about the Mariners in a while, the reason why his trade value is high is because he's still pretty good, right? And so you don't, I mean, maybe you don't wait until a little later because the trade value is not as high. That's the argument, right? But then you have idiot teams like coming to the Mariners making offers, allegedly making offers to their young guy, trying to get Gilbert or trying to get Wu or trying to get one of these younger guys. And those trade offers are just completely out of, they're just not within the realm of possibility. Castillo seems possible. And just think the smoke is there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the smoke is there just because it seems like the most um, it seems more realistic than the other pitchers being traded.
Yeah, and I
Um,
also just think part of it is they are going to be motivated to get rid of Castillo's contract at some point.
Yeah.
mhm, mhm.
Um, I think Castillo is still more than worth his contract as a player. It looks a little different as a trade asset, um, because his contract extends for I think 3 more years, and and then it has like an option for a fourth that could vest if he's really good in the third. Yeah, that's what it is. It's about 3 years, 3 years and about $72 million remaining with a vesting option if he reaches a certain innings threshold in 2027.
Yep.
So that's if he's truly a declining pitcher who is going to be kind of, 1 to 2 WAR range by maybe 2026, then that contract is
A
not
problem.
a great asset versus just him still kind of being a player that is good enough to justify what he's making in 2025. So that's kind of the calculus that makes it tricky with Castillo. But I think that they're also kind of motivated to eventually move that contract.
Yep.
But obviously, then the full no trade clause, I don't know I don't think anyone has put together any sort of speculation about whether he would
Right.
accept a move basically anywhere. I'm sure he'd mostly be fine. Usually, like full no trade clauses aren't great problems, especially if you kind of express that you're trying to trade the player. They usually are,
Yeah.
unless sending them to like the Colorado Rockies or something.
Yeah.
They're not gonna like, if they're not wanted, they're not gonna be like, no, actually you have to keep me around,
Right.
kind of move a lot. So
Right.
so it's not a huge obstacle. And I think there seem to be teams like the Red Sox and the Cubs in particular is where I've been seeing it
Yep.
online that are coveting a pitcher like Castillo. I know a lot of Red Sox fans are thinking he's the kind of pitcher that their really good pitching coach who had a lot of success this year, with some of their previously more mediocre
Yep.
pitchers that he was able to really upgrade in 2024. They're really confident in his ability with a guy like Castillo. I think the Cubs just really are trying to chase right-handed starting pitching because all their good pitchers are left-handed. Um, and so I think that that's realistic and that he could be treated like a positive asset by those teams. Um, but could you get a guy like Tristan Casas,
Right.
first baseman for the Red Sox, for Castillo? I don't know. Maybe they would take a prospect back with Castillo, but
I'd do
even
it.
then,
I'd do it if I'm the Mariners right now. I'd do
yeah,
it.
no, I think the Mariners would definitely do
Yeah.
that. The Castillo
Yeah.
one is just complicated because the beauty is really in the eye of the beholder with Castillo's contract as an asset.
So Dipoto said today on the Seattle Times that another reveal from him was sort of the willingness to trade top end prospects, which he hasn't done
Yeah.
in the past few years. So maybe that's a route, but just in the general, not necessarily about that, but it could be, where do they need to upgrade in your opinion the most? Like what do they need to target right now?
Yeah, so the one thing about the prospect thing is interesting is it does sound like they're trying to hype up their upper minor
Mhm.
prospects based on what he talked about this today. Um, I think it's tricky to find teams with good major league players that they're making available for prospects right now. And it's kind of the similar thing I just talked about with the Cubs. Um, the Cubs have said in the reports about the Horner trade that they want major league players back, it's going to be difficult to convince a team like the Cubs to trade the Mariners, one of their good players, for a player that is maybe not major league ready, and that the Mariners are trading specifically because he can't step into whatever opening they have for him. So that's just a complicated calculus. But yeah, I think second and third somewhere. Dipoto I saw say, or in one of the tweet summaries of what he said by either Adam Jude or Daniel Kramer, they were saying that he's looking for one of second or third base to plug in, and the other one will be kind of cobbled together with the guys that they have there. Obviously, the article I did write was kind of advocating for the cobble method at second base.
Yep.
Because I think Cole Young is a player that they should make a priority to step into that role sooner rather than later. So I really think maybe the cleanest, most obvious public option is to kind of just wait until Alec Boehm's price comes down in a way that makes sense for both sides, in if not maybe a third team, so that they can give up prospects for him.
Yep.
Just because I think that's the third baseman that's available. It's not a amazing, super exciting option. It's a, prime age third baseman who has shown huge flashes at the plate, but is pretty inconsistent, is a good defender at third base, but has kind of a questionable arm, has some character concerns from a clubhouse perspective, that he just kind of doesn't always take it super seriously and doesn't really mesh with what the Phillies, their kind of crazy, intense clubhouse atmosphere.
Let me just cut you off really quick.
Yeah.
Better or worse than Kyle Seager?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because that's kind of the baseline, right? Like, he was the third baseman for X amount of years.
I would say that there's not a really, I would not. I mean, Kyle Seager's such a complicated player to talk about in that regard, I would say.
I agree.
Because he was really good sometimes, he was really not great other
Yeah.
times. He's also more of a, the end of his career, he was such a slugger. He was such a sellout slugger, and Boehm is more of a contact.
He was great when he hit the
Or
ice
average.
cream truck at
Yeah.
Yankee Stadium.
God, he was
Yeah.
Kyle Seager.
Yeah.
2021 Kyle Seager was just like so ridiculous.
And that was only 3 years ago.
Yeah, he was so washed though, and he was just like absolutely selling out and just clubbing lefty bombs.
Yeah.
I would say I will be interested. Alec Boehm, I think, probably the most obvious option.
Yeah.
I would be interested in who signs Alex Bregman.
Yeah.
It will not be the Mariners. I don't know if the Mariners, even if they had, 30 million to give him, would be able to get him, because I'm not sure he would want to go to the Astros' ostensible division rival.
Yeah.
I will be interested if the Phillies sign Alex Bregman, if the Dodgers sign Alex Bregman. Whoever ends up signing Alex Bregman is likely, maybe the Mets sign Alex Bregman. That it's not an amazing or intriguing option, but Brett Beatty from the Mets is like a huge trade candidate name. He's really, really struggled in the major leagues. So it's one of those where it's going to be a tough sell in terms of here's the guy we needed to add to stabilize the position. But he's definitely probably going to be available, especially if they bring in someone, and he's like a post-hype guy and the Dipoto loves post-hype guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wherever Bregman goes, I think will likely create some sort of opening. I'm not a Nolan Arenado believer. I just think he's
too
got
old,
so much money on his contract.
Oh yeah.
And he would just be such a negative asset sink unless he is able to reverse his recent downward trend offensively. He offered to play first base. His agent put that out there that he clearly obviously wants to get out of St. Louis, and said he would be willing to play first base for whatever team, but he's like not a great hitter anymore.
Yeah.
And so if you put him at first base, it kind of defeats the purpose of him entirely because basically he's like one of the greatest defensive third basemen in the
Right.
history of Major League Baseball. So if you take away the fact that he's playing third base, it really doesn't make sense to acquire his average bat at first base. It's just
Just
weird.
give me Justin Turner at first base in the platoon at that case for one more year, man.
Yeah,
I'll take one
absolutely.
more year of JT.
I was blown away, and we can talk about the JT Carlos Santana thing that's been floated
Yep.
basically the whole offseason. But I was blown away by Justin Turner because I was like, why are the Mariners
Yes.
trading for the oldest hitter in baseball at the trade
Yeah.
deadline? That's crazy. And
Yeah.
then that dude just absolutely just hits it wall like alley to alley and
Yeah,
just
he's
like
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
he's such a machine. Like
Yeah.
his bat speed is just zero.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he just flicks it everywhere. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well,
He
and
was
don't
so
you think
impressive.
it was what they don't have, right? So that's
Yeah.
what struck to me was like, oh, this is what like I mean, it's gonna sound very cliche, but a professional hitter looks like
Yeah.
who's not trying to hit bombs. And that's not even a shot at like Cal Raleigh, who I absolutely love, but there's so much swing and miss in that lineup. And
Yeah.
when Justin Turner came, it was so fun to watch him just flick a single to right field
Yeah.
every once in a while.
Yeah. But I think part of it though, just this is not based on data, it's just my theory though. He didn't catch like the Mariners disease. So like he came on like, a little later on. When did we trade for him in August?
Yeah.
Like he
Trade
was just
deadline.
yeah,
Trade
at the
deadline,
yeah, so
July.
he's
Yeah.
like fresh, right? So like he didn't have all those bad vibes that were
You
like
were such a vibes
yeah,
guy
yeah.
and like you believe in curses and
Yeah, yeah,
all this stuff.
yeah,
How about the fact that
yeah.
he just knows how to hit, Kev?
Yeah,
Like it might
that.
just be that.
All yeah, but I also love how he loves Seattle, right? Like he's like I don't know, like he was still posting stuff like that. He's been spending time in Seattle. Like you easily just go back. Assuming he lives in LA, has a house there. But anyways,
All right, let's finish with this. See if you can give me 2 to 3 quick predictions. You can choose to make them fun or things you hope or things you actually think will happen. I'll let you choose. But trades slash signings, like how obviously I'm gonna read this for the people. Kevin and I joke about how when we talk about the Mariners, people just stop listening, but that's fine. For the 10 people who are still in, this is the projected lineup that I came up with. Robles, Julio, Randy, Cal. Not a bad top four.
Yeah.
Rayleigh, Locklear, maybe first base platoon. I don't know. Based on what they have right now. Garver slash Rayleigh DH. And then it goes more Rivas, Bliss, Cole Young, maybe your love there, and JP Crawford, right? So we're not rolling with that lineup. I mean, I'm not willing to accept it. So we talked about bullpen. We talk starters. We talk second and third base upgrades. If you had to predict 2 to 3 things that you think will happen before now and opening day, what would they be?
I think the thing I'm most confident about, or that I would most confidently predict, is Carlos Santana first base with Luke Raley.
Okay.
Um, I think it's going to end up that Carlos Santana is more feasible than Justin Turner. I don't know. I don't say that super confidently, but I think Carlos Santana is like the collective will for Carlos Santana, and them to acknowledge Carlos Santana is as like that was a really important piece, even though he wasn't like producing more than like league average bat when
Right.
he was there, the clutch and leadership, and he just won the Gold Glove last year, and
and
Rayleigh's
Julio likes
And the
him.
Julio,
and who,
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
Yep.
Rayleigh's
yeah,
really actually kind of struggled at first base.
yeah.
I think they're going to end up playing him in the outfield more than
Mm.
you just look at it and it's like Julio and Victor Robles and Randy Rosarena. How are they ever going to play Luke Raley in the outfield? And it's like, well, Randy Rosarena, not the greatest left field defender I've ever
It's
seen.
an adventure. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah,
Kevin and I talked about this on the podcast, something I did not realize when we got Randy.
yeah. Anyway, he's
Uh,
probably going to DH just sneaky amount, and maybe
yeah.
Victor Robles isn't going to play
Yeah.
that much against right-handed hitters if
Yeah.
he's not on the same level. So I think Carlos Santana, that'd be the number one, the most confident player.
Okay.
I do think that they are the best option for Alec Bohm.
Okay.
Um, in terms of like, I think the fit is good. I think he's the role would be most obvious. Now, obviously, the biggest thing is just the Phillies have got to get to the point
Yeah.
where they're willing willing to listen to reason about Alec Boehm.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I do think that's like the most obvious player that's available for them to get in the trade market to fill that huge need. And I think third base, gosh, I just am like I wrote, I don't want to see them try to bring in a guy to replicate whatever they need at second base. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, another second baseman to try to
Mm.
cover off, the minimum requirement at second base, and
Yep.
they've just struggled at that. So yeah, I think Alec Boehm probably the biggest thing. I'm trying to think of one that's a little more off the board than those two very obvious ones.
Give me one player then. So I like Santana and Bohm. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Give me a player that, I mean, Dipoto always, and I know Hollander's involved, but they're always doing something. And you're like, whoa, I
yeah.
didn't see that coming. So
Dakota's
not,
like the Vladimir Putin. Like he's not
wow. Wow, Kev.
functionally.
Okay. Uh, I'm sure he's going to love that. God, he listens to the podcast, Kev. Um, So let's not
Uh,
say somebody they acquire because I almost feel like it's impossible. Like they always come up with somebody you're like, I
Yeah.
mean, Randy was rumored, but that was still surprising, right? So how about somebody we ship away that we'd be surprised by? Just give us a shocker just for fun. And if you're wrong, no one will care.
Yeah.
Like it's not JP, right? He's like
No,
too
no.
much of a clubhouse
Yeah, no, definitely
captain
not.
type, okay.
I don't know if it's a shocker. Well, the one name on the roster that's for sure on the roster that I could see them trying to actively get rid of is Mitch Garver.
Yeah.
and
But
mute. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I think he's making enough money and there might be a team out there for him whether they could get creative and get rid of him. I ultimately think they will leave him on the roster.
Yeah.
The one I'd be curious about is if they end up trading for a second baseman or say signing Hai Sung, I mean be clear,
Yeah.
not Hassan,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Hai Sung Kim, the
Mhm.
the Korean second baseman who was just recently posted. If they end up signing him, I think they might trade Ryan Bliss, which is not like an
Yeah.
earth-shattering, like, oh my God, not Ryan Bliss, but I think he's definitely a player in the mix. He's like fits like the high minors type.
Yeah.
He's super speedy and could pretty comfortably produce like a decent league average type if he's given opportunity. And I think he's a guy that a team like the White Sox um could use because a team like the White Sox or the Marlins or these
What?
teams that are just going nowhere but have vast
Yeah.
opportunity for a guy and to
Yeah,
take a shot on a guy
yeah.
like that the Mariners might not have if they fill that. I don't think they will. I don't the one is like Mitch Haniger, right? Like
Yeah.
they would maybe look at just designating him in March, but I that's been way too quiet for me. I
Yeah.
kind of
It's
think they're
weirdly
going to try
quiet.
to sneak him through a couple
Yeah.
of months and see if they can kind of get any sort of production from him,
Yeah.
which is a choice that they will likely make and have to deal with potential. I don't know. Maybe it's not that big of a deal, but he had like 30 starts in the last like after the trade deadline.
Yeah.
He like he could
Barely
barely get
played.
on the field after Dan
Yeah.
Wilson took over. So
Yeah.
so that's not good. I don't know. Randy Rosarena, I really don't believe they will trade.
Right.
They maybe could trade him like mid-season, but I would not go as bold to predict they would try to cut Randy because I think Randy's a core part of what they're doing. I think he's probably the like best player that they've added next to Julio
Yeah.
since they've started trying to add next to Julio.
Yep.
So I think they just got to stick with him because he's a real um multiplier of a player. So I don't I
Here's
would
my one that I don't think they'll do, and people have talked about it. This is not, an original thought here, but it fits. Is I wouldn't be totally shocked. I would be disappointed if they traded Munoz.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're on the
The
same wavelength.
contract
Yeah.
good because they got him before he blew up. So that makes me feel like, that doesn't fit. But the workload for a reliever, I mean, we just know this about pitchers and their tendency, the Seawald trade and the sort of, if you believe that Dipoto is arrogant enough to believe he thinks he can do what he can do really well, which seems to be part of his track record, then he thinks he can just go replicate that bullpen again.
Yep.
So I don't think they will, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's value there, to do it, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
I
I
wonder
don't
if
know.
they would take a closer look at that next year because his salary doubles next year.
Okay.
He's up to like 6 million with a club option. And I think that, a 6, 8, and $10 million club option, which are his escalators
Yeah.
through 28, are good for him at ages 27, 28, 29. I mean, way under
Yeah.
market value, probably still for the value he provides. I do think, though, eventually they will look at trading him because they always trade their relievers.
Right.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, do they just do it a year early
Yeah.
to get potentially more value? And I don't know.
I don't
Sometimes
think
I
they're in a
just
good
think
position to trade him right now. Just
totally agree. And I'm not
yeah.
saying they should, but that kind of makes me feel like they're going to.
No,
It's
I mean
just
he's
every time I think like this isn't a good idea, they do it. So
Yeah, yeah,
definitely an asset. I
yeah.
just don't. I just you like you said you asked a question about the bullpen and
yeah.
what they're going to do, and it's like, were they to pull the plug on like the key cog of the entire operation, I
Right.
just don't know if they
No,
would
Yeah.
feel
it's
confident.
lunacy. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
lunacy. But
yeah.
that's what makes me feel like they're going to do it. So
It's crazy. We're talking about like 5, 10, 15 million. And just to close up our conversation, like Juan Soto signed a 15-year deal for $765
Yeah,
million. Like,
51 million a year.
reminder, Julio Rodriguez's deal, I just looked it up, was 209 million,
Yeah,
right?
minimum. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
and he's
insane. We
making
got
19 million this year.
we got
Yeah.
so lucky with
Yeah,
Julio. I'll put it out there. That was
absolutely.
oh
Yep.
yeah, yep.
Yep.
All right. Anything else?
This is great. We're gonna see what happens. Winter meetings are wrapping,
Yeah.
right? Wrapping
Yeah.
up. I think they're at the end of them, and then we'll
Yeah.
Yeah,
see what happens. But
Well, Patrick has the pleasure of analyzing, and Brian, I'm sure, will provide his analysis as well on the upcoming or non-upcoming moves.
yeah. I
Patrick,
was gonna say
thanks.
I'll write something if they do something, but
yeah,
as of right now,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Austin Shenton was not exactly
No.
a article worthy addition.
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congrats, Austin. You just made the podcast at the very
He's
end.
from like Bellingham or something.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick.
Of course.
Top five. Do we have the music?
No.
I got five on it.
Oh, that was
Okay.
pretty good. You're getting better.
You are wearing the Santa Clara hat,
Which I think I lost some bet earlier in the podcast, and I think I said I'd get a Santa Clara shirt.
Oh yeah, you did.
But
That's
yeah,
true. Oh, I'll take it. I mean, you're a
man of my
season ticket
word.
holder. You're a
Man
season
of my
ticket
word.
holder. All right, we talk way too much about Santa Clara basketball on this podcast, Seattle Sports Podcast. Okay, I have a top five for you, and it is the top five biggest free agent deals in Mariners history.
Ooh, this is a
So,
good one.
total value of the contract.
And it has to be a free agent.
Has to be a free agent, so
Yeah.
no international. So that's going to eliminate Ichiro, obviously, which wouldn't have qualified anyway. It's not a trade. There's a couple people who you would think of. The contracts aren't as big as you think. You can name number one.
I
Or
can?
not. Yes. It's the biggest contract in Mariners history by far. Nothing's even close.
Wait, but it can't be Julio, right? Because he was
No,
like,
Kevin. Free agent signing. It's the biggest free agent signing in Mariners history
dude,
by millions and millions.
I'm having a hard time.
I'm
Dude,
embarrassed.
we're not in baseball season.
I'll give you a hint.
Yeah, go ahead.
He played second base.
Oh, Robinson Cano.
10 years, $240 million.
Richie Sexton.
Okay, Kev, you didn't even let me debrief the Robinson Cano. Robinson Cano, 10 years, $240 million. People always see it as a bad contract.
Yeah.
This was his war for the 5 years he played in Seattle.
Yeah.
6.3, 3.5, 7.3.
Yeah, he was good.
2.9, 3.4. He was good.
Yeah.
And if you look at that Juan Soto contract, I mean, I'm not saying they're the same player, but Robinson Cano looks pretty good. Okay.
Yeah.
You said Richie Sexton. You're right. Number 4. 4 years, 50 million. I will say Richie Sexton, first 2 years in Seattle, WAR 3.9, 2.7.
He was hitting bombs. He was
Yeah,
like
it wasn't bad. I would
Eugenio
take Richie
Suarez.
Sexton right now. Not like the
Um,
current Richie Sexton, but
yeah.
that one.
Adrian Beltre.
Adrian Beltre is number 2. 5 years, 64 million. Sounds like a deal.
Bill Vivasi was that Zarenzik or Bavasi? I think it was Bavasi was spending
Yeah,
money.
yeah.
Those
And
two guys.
Beltre, we've talked about this before,
Yeah.
right? That he had no all-star appearances, but his defense, he was so good. His
Yeah.
WAR was above 3 every year in Seattle. He was awesome.
Talk about guys
He was
putting
great.
out their bodies on the line, right?
Well, yeah, his testicles, put his testicles on the line. Google it if you don't know about it. All right.
Um, ooh, Carlos Silva.
Nice, Kev. Number 5, 4 years, 48 million. That
That
one
was
didn't work
horrible.
out. Carlos Silva, 1 year in Seattle, negative 2.8 WAR. Actually, he might have played another year, but that
I
was
was
his first
just
year.
getting warmed up,
But
baby.
here's the thing about Carlos Silva. It was bad when they signed it. Everybody knew it was bad. He had a bad ERA the year before.
Yeah.
All he did was eat innings. He was not good.
Yeah.
I, though, you'll like this. Carlos Silva that year, I don't know why, but I went to a Mariners game with my in-laws, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law.
Yeah.
Don't go to many baseball games. Big soccer fans, not listeners to the podcast. Maybe they'll listen to this one. Steve, Sue, and myself went to a Mariners game. My wife didn't go. No nephews, no nieces, no brother-in-law, sister-in-law. It was just the three of us. Why? I don't remember. But they had a cardboard cutout of Carlos Silva at the game, and I made us take a family picture with him, and I have it on my Facebook somewhere, and I am going to send it to you at some point,
Yeah, that's
and it's
great.
awesome.
Um,
So shout out Carlos Silva, Steve, and Sue.
Man, that was pretty awesome there,
Yeah.
guy Carlos
Okay,
Silva.
you got
So
one more.
I got
It's a good
four.
one. It's a good one.
Sean Figgins.
No, he was only 4 years, 36 million. Didn't make
Only
that.
4 years,
No,
36
it's
million.
9 million a year. It's like nothing now. Haniger's way over that.
Oh God. So I got one strike.
Yeah.
And he was a good signing. You're saying it was a good.
No. He was terrible, but I'm saying it wasn't as much money as this other guy. Who what?
Oh,
Oh, sorry. The one you're trying to think of could be argued as the best free agent signing in Mariners history.
okay. So it was a good. Damn. I'm out of names.
You know this one. Same era as Robinson Cano.
Nelson Cruz.
Nelson Cruz, 4 years, 57 million. He was absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Mariners of all time.
Which is kind of ironic because like the Mariners get a lot of flack for not bringing in hitters, but they brought in Cano and they brought in Nelson Cruz and they brought in Richie Sexton and they brought in Beltre was good at
Beltre
defense.
was good. No, he was good on
Yeah,
offense. So he was
yeah,
fine. All
yeah.
these guys, I was thinking the same thing.
That they overpaid for.
And Ichiro they bring in, right? So
Yeah.
like all these guys can hit. And their free agent history is not that bad. They did stuff like they sold us on trading for Jeff Cirillo, then they signed him an extension. They traded for Eric Bedard, they traded for Cliff Lee, not hitters, right? But those kind
Yeah.
of things didn't work. And so we always remember the ones that don't work.
Yeah.
But I think people should just think of Nelson Cruz every time they're thinking the Mariners suck. They can't ever pick anybody up. Like
Yeah.
Nelson Cruz is awesome. And as we talked about with Patrick, how about the pitchers they've developed over
Yeah.
the last
Yeah.
few years? Let's spin this positive in 2025, people.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. All right. My top five for you is kind of
Yep.
weird.
I love it.
You say you watch the NBA, correct? Do you
Absolutely.
follow the NBA?
Uh-huh.
So can you name the top five scorers, points per game at this moment?
Ooh, baby. I have not been looking at this, so this is a good one.
Yeah, that's what I
This is good.
figured.
I've been watching the NBA, and I have a general idea of who's been doing well, but I think Anthony Edwards is in the top 5 right now.
Nah, he's in the top
Oh,
10.
come on.
26.4
One strike right
points per
away.
game. Yeah. Sorry.
Goodness. Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis, also number 8. 27.5.
Well, I'm out.
But
What a
for
great
yeah.
top five segment.
Well, start with the MVPs, right? Who's won MVP like every
Well,
year?
Jokic isn't a huge
Yeah.
scorer. Is he
No,
up
he's
there?
averaging 32.3 points per
That's
game.
insane. Well, it's because they've been bad and they don't have any
Yeah.
scoring this year.
Yeah.
I mean, Luca, I felt like is usually there, but I don't feel like he's been scoring at the
So
same
he's
rate.
at 28.7.
So what's that put him
Um,
at? What number is
he's
he?
at number 6.
Okay, Jason Tatum's been really scoring a lot this year.
He's also below Luca at 28.2.
See, I'm getting all these guys in the
Yeah,
26 to 28 range, so it's
yeah,
not like I'm way off here.
you're not getting the. So
Uh,
Jokic was
is
32.3.
Giannis up there? Yeah,
Giannis is
Giannis is
leading the
crushing it.
league. He's at 32.5, also
Wow, that's a
averaging
lot of points.
11.6. Um,
We're really underappreciating Giannis.
your uh Lincoln's, is it Lincoln or
Devin
it's
Booker?
no Devin
Oh,
Booker? No,
Devin
the
Booker's
other
my
one.
guy.
No, no, no. You told a story about LaMelo Ball at one point.
LaMelo Ball is up there.
31.1 points per game. So
Dang.
there's 3 players averaging over 30. Giannis, Jokic, and LaMelo Ball.
I've only coached against one of them.
Um,
It's
number
not it's
4,
not Giannis.
Shy Gilgeous
Oh, Shea
Alexander.
Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, 29.8 points per game.
Yeah, that I should have got that.
And rounding out the top 5 is O'Day's own Paolo Banchero.
That's not fair. He hasn't played. How many
Oh
games has
yeah,
he
yeah,
played?
yeah, that's right. He's 5 point. Sorry, he's only played 5 games, so it should be
So who was
Luca.
number 6?
Luca was number 6,
Oh,
so
I already had two
you had
strikes
our
at
2
you. I
strikes.
already had two
Yeah,
strikes at
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
All right,
So,
I'm embarrassed. This is
uh,
embarrassing. I can we cut this? Oh my God. At least my guys
uh,
are in the top 10.
yeah,
I do watch the NBA, but it's
yeah,
really yeah. I wouldn't have guessed. The one I would have definitely gotten wrong is I knew LaMelo because we've talked about him as having a good year. I would not have guessed he's at 31 a game. That's
yeah.
insane.
Well, what's pretty interesting is LeBron and Curry both are averaging 23 points per game.
Curry's playing the lowest minutes he's played, maybe ever. The Warriors are doing a
30.5.
fascinating thing of playing ton of dudes and seeing how that works.
Yeah.
Their rotation is bigger than any rotation in the league right now. So
Yeah, I watched
yeah,
the game last night. Or 2 nights ago, they brought in the closing lineup and they were all fresh and they won the game at the end. So,
yeah. I love the NBA,
um,
but not as much as I love the Kraken.
yeah,
I'm all in. Let's go. I'm going on
we
Thursday,
brought,
Kev.
oh, you are.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
you
got a
you
ticket
gotta
from a
give us
loyal
some.
listener, Drew. Great listener.
He
Listens to
does
podcasts all
not
the
like the
time.
Kraken IPA though.
Does he,
So
oh, did he
he
comment?
tweeted us and he said
That's
the
awesome.
Kraken IPA is not a good beer and it's mass produced and stay away from it. It should not be called a hazy IPA. I'm paraphrasing.
Dang, this is perfect. Well, I won't. I'll be embarrassed to have one on Thursday, so I will
Yeah,
not. I will
yeah,
not. I will follow his lead, and we're
yeah.
gonna go watch them play the Bruins. It's exciting.
We
So,
brought it all this week. We had Seahawks
yep,
football. We talked a little Huskies.
yep,
Went deep on the Mariners offseason.
yep.
I'm looking forward to our final episodes of 2024. It should be good. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.